Life is full of choices, some good, some bad, and some that leave us wondering, how did I get here? Proverbs chapter 6 is like the Swiss Army knife of wisdom, packed with practical life lessons that help us navigate everything from work to relationships to avoiding those inevitable uh-oh moments. So, grab a seat, maybe a coffee, and let's dive into some timeless advice from Proverbs 6 that's as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. Proverbs 6 starts with a very practical lesson. Be careful what promises you make, especially when it comes to money. Verses 1-2 warn us against making rash pledges, especially when it involves guaranteeing someone else's debt. You might think you're just being helpful, but the Bible is saying, hold up, think before you act. It's kind of like when your friend asks if you'll help them move on a weekend, and before you know it, you've committed to a 7 a.m. wake-up call and carrying heavy boxes. Next time, maybe say, let me pray on that. The solution? Proverbs says, go, humble yourself, and plead your case. Verse 3. Get out of bad promises while you still can. Humility is better than being stuck in a tough spot later. 3. Next, we get one of the most famous images in Proverbs, the hard-working ant. Yep, Proverbs 6:6-8 tells us to go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. If you're like me, you probably didn't wake up today expecting to get life advice from an insect, but here we are. Ants don't have smartphones, they don't binge-watch shows, and they definitely don't snooze their alarm 10 times before getting up. Yet, they get things done. What's our excuse? The lesson is simple. Diligence leads to success. The ant prepares for the future by working hard in the present. It's a reminder that laziness today equals struggle tomorrow. And guess what? There's no ant boss standing over them. They work because they know what needs to be done. Proverbs 6 doesn't just focus on hard work. It also warns us against the temptations that can derail our lives. Verses 12-13 talk about the troublemaker, the person who's always scheming, lying, and stirring up conflict. The Bible calls them a worthless person, which is a pretty strong way of saying, stay away from these people, they will drag you down. Ever met someone who's like the human version of a pop-up ad, always offering something you didn't ask for and never really want? Yeah. That's the kind of person Proverbs says to avoid. Instead of following deceit and wickedness, Proverbs urges us to seek honesty, integrity, and peace. It's not always the most glamorous path, but it's the one that brings lasting joy. Now things get serious. Verses 16-19 lay out what the Bible calls the 7 things the Lord hates. It's a strong list. Pride, lying, shedding innocent blood, plotting evil, rushing to sin, bearing false witness, and stirring up conflict. God isn't ambiguous here. These are things he despises: pride, fear, and bitterness. It's like a top 7 sins to avoid countdown, except instead of it being a cool playlist, it's more like a guide to not getting yourself into spiritual hot water. Why does God hate these things so much? Because they destroy relationships, harm communities, and separate us from his love. Proverbs 6 is a wake-up call to choose righteousness over selfishness. Proverbs 6 ends with one of its strongest warnings. Watch out for temptation, especially sexual immorality. Verses 24-29 talk about the dangers of being seduced by sin and the long-term consequences that follow. The consequences are clear. Giving into temptation can wreck marriages, destroy families, and lead to regret that's hard to undo. Proverbs don't sugarcoat it. Wisdom means setting boundaries and being faithful to God's path. Proverbs 6 is like a life coach that doesn't pull any punches. It warns us to be cautious with our promises, diligent in our work, careful with our words, and wary of temptation. It's wisdom that challenges us, but also gives us practical tools to live a life that honors God and brings peace. So, whether you're navigating life's daily challenges or just trying to figure out your next step, Proverbs 6 has your back. Take its wisdom to heart and watch as your life takes a turn for the better. And hey, Don't forget, no one ever regretted choosing wisdom over folly.